Hello, in this video I'm going to show how I changed the hinges on the front doors of my Land Rover Defender. The reason for replacing the hinges is that on the driver's side in particular I noticed that the mechanism of the hinge had become very loose, and I think this was affecting the way that the door was shutting. Occasionally it would not shut properly. Now I know replacing the door hinges should be a pretty straightforward job, but as we all know on Land Rover Defenders, nothing's quite as straightforward as it will initially seem. The first problem that I've got to tackle is that in the past one of the previous owners has gone round and drilled out at least one of the heads on each of the bolts of each of the hinges. I can only assume that this is some sort of DIY attempt at security to prevent people stealing the doors off the Land Rover. So having noticed this before I started the job, I prepared myself by purchasing one of these universal bolt removal kits. So firstly I've got to drill a hole through the head of the damaged bolt. Then I insert the extraction tool. This is done by turning the extraction tool in the hole anti-clockwise. As I wind in the extraction tool anti-clockwise, it tightens up until it can't go any further. Then I just keep applying pressure anti-clockwise all the time, and in theory that should undo the bolt. As you can see here, I'm going to have to add a little bit of heat to help it along a little bit. Rather than add the heat to the hinge and damaging the paintwork, I heat up the extraction tool and hope the heat transfers from the extraction tool into the head of the bolt. And as you can see, this worked quite well. Unfortunately, the bolt broke off. So the Torx head on this next bolt was damaged, so I'm going to have to drill that out and pretty much do the same. I followed the same procedure as before, except this time the extraction tool snapped. I don't know whether it was because I applied the heat or it was just too weak to do the job, but it snapped and it's left me in a bit of a predicament now. So I tried several ways of getting the remnants of the bolt out, the old bolt out, but none of them worked. So I just had to revert to the old hammer and chisel method. Here you can see I'm just using the remnants of the extraction tool. It was perfect for starting this job off, and now you can see I'm just chasing the head round with a chisel. The remaining part of the extraction tool did have its uses because it was very sharp and hard, so it could cut into the head of the bolt quite easily, which then gave a place where the chisel could get some purchase. If you haven't already subscribed, I wonder if you would consider doing so. It is free and it gives incentive to create more content. Thank you. Eventually I was able to get a pair of grips on the head of the bolt and unscrew it all of the way out. Fortunately the two bolts that were actually through the door were easy, and they came out with no problems whatsoever. Once the hinge was removed, it was just a case of removing the two clips that were in the post of the door frame. The 4 hinges that I bought came as a kit, and that was supplied with all of the fixtures and fittings that are required to complete the job. I purchased the kit on eBay and I paid £64 for it. Here I'm showing you the old clips that are in the post. As you can see, one of them has got a broken off bolt in it. Once I'd figured out how to remove them, they were no problem at all really. I gave the inside of the post a good spray with some crown rust proofing material that I've got. Later on I might just put some Lano guard down in those holes, which will protect it very well. So when removing these clips, I was trying very hard not to drop one within the post, because it might prove difficult to get it out, and I didn't want something rotting away at the bottom of the post. And sure enough, true to form, I dropped one within the void of the post, but fortunately I had one of these magnetic things and was able to successfully extract it. The next fiddly bit was fitting the new clips. Now, got to fit them without dropping them inside the void of the door. So what I did, I pushed a drill bit through the hole initially until I got the clip started, and I had no trouble with that. As I reassemble everything, I apply copper grease to all of the nuts and bolts. In fact, I put it on everything I can because I've had so many bad experiences with removing nuts and bolts from the Land Rover. Now with each hinge there are 2 long bolts and 2 short bolts. I initially fitted the long bolts in the post and the short bolts in the door. In actual fact, it's supposed to be the other way round. The long bolts go through the door and they have a nut on the other end which is quite accessible, and the short bolts just go through into the clip that's in the post. I noticed with the gaskets for the hinges that there was invariably just one gasket which was between the hinge and the post, and then the gaskets that were between the hinge and the door, there seemed to be 3 on each hinge. So I just copied that using 2 of the old gaskets in addition to 1 new one. I decided to make it easy for myself by removing the door card on the inside of the door. I don't think you necessarily have to remove the door card, but it gives you better access to the nuts if you do. As you can see here, the inner part of my door is pretty bad. I did have this panel off when I initially got the vehicle about 10 years ago, and it's no worse than it was there, so I think the deterioration has gone as far as it can go. So what I might do, I might in one of my next videos attempt to do some sort of repair on this, because what's tending to happen is the door card is flapping around at the bottom, purely because there is nowhere for the door card to be fixed. Here I'm just holding the hex bolt steady on the other side of the door while I just tighten the nuts up. So the procedure for the next 3 hinges is pretty straightforward and more or less the same, except for the top hinges it's just the process of fitting the wing mirrors through some pre-drilled holes, and that's pretty straightforward, but I'll show it here anyway. In this video I'm only showing the replacement of the 4 hinges on the 2 front doors. I think the replacement of the hinges on the 2 back doors will be a little bit more straightforward. However, I've still got the drilled out bolt heads to contend with. So here in the top hinges there's pre-drilled holes. It's just a case of undoing the Phillips screws from them, which aren't corroded at all, and then just fitting them back on before you fit the hinge. As you can see here, I dropped another one of the clips down and managed to get it out. Gave everything a good spray with WD-40 and crown rust proofing. So that's it, job done. All that remains now is for me to change the back ones. Regarding the colour of these, I don't mind the colour. I don't know if they need to be painted or not. I prefer not to paint stuff. It's utilitarian for me anyway, so I don't mind the finish. It's like a galvanised type finish on them. What would you do? So that's it until the next time. If you've managed to watch up until now, I thank you very much. And if you've subscribed, I thank you for your subscription.